First thing I want to talk to you about is sea fishing. I rang you the other day. You told me about the bluefin tuna success, and I nodded. And do you know, I googled it afterwards, and I'm not quite sure what it is. What happened?
So I spoke here about 6 years ago, and I said that back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s in Scarborough and Whitby, there was something called the British Tunny Club. They had a headquarters in Scarborough, and it became a world-famous bluefin tuna fishery. John Wayne flew across to fish it. Errol Flynn Hollywood was coming to Scarborough to catch bluefin, and they just disappeared. In the mid-50s, the bluefin disappeared completely. So I came and spoke, it was 6 years ago, I think. I came and spoke and I said that this was an amazing thing that had happened, but, I said, there was a possibility that it might happen again, because one or two big bluefin tuna had been seen off Donegal on the west coast of Ireland. Well, fast forward to where we are. There is now an up and running, well-established bluefin tuna fishery in the United Kingdom, and because of Brexit...
Who knew he'd mention that word?
So when the bluefin first turned up in Cornwall, and it literally was about that time, about 5 or 6 years ago, suddenly big bluefin tuna were being seen in Cornwall, but we weren't allowed to fish for them because we had zero quota, and you weren't allowed, without any quota, to even target them on rod and line. So we have the French, our friends, the Spanish, the Portuguese, landing about 25,000 tonnes a year into market and having a thriving sport fishery, and we weren't even allowed to target them on rod and line. Once Brexit happened, we became an independent registered state with the global tuna authorities, and last year was the first season we were allowed to go out and catch bluefin tuna. Albeit it's regulated, albeit it's tag and release. The fish are average size 200 to 250 pounds. I mean, the smallest ones are about 90.
You've been, haven't you?
But I'm going to tell you more about it, don't worry about that. Yeah, lots of fish, and the bigger ones, plenty of 500 pounders. I think the biggest one caught last year was measured, estimated at 850 pounds. Now,
just stop there. That is the crucial number in tunny, isn't it?
Yes. 851 is the old record. It was the old bluefin record caught out of Scarborough.
Because they measured the hawser as well, and it's still controversial.
Yeah, I think it probably actually wasn't quite as much as that, but it was still a big fish. And last year there was one caught very similar size, or estimated, off Plymouth. Over the last 30 years, I've spent tens of thousands of pounds flying all over the world to catch sail, marlin, tuna, wahoo, all those fish. But I can tell you that on the 13th of November 2021, fishing out of Mevagissey, and we left the harbour, not as early as planned. Something went wrong in the pub the night before. I can't quite work out what that was. And we headed up east towards the Eddystone, and literally as far as the eye could see, there were gulls diving, gannets diving, bluefin breaking, and that day my nephew and I we hooked 11, and we had 9 bluefin to the boat, tagged and released. It was a port record for Mevagissey, and it was the best day's game fishing I've ever had in my life anywhere in the world. And the really exciting thing is, because it went so well, it's been extended this year. There are now 25 boats in England that have got the licence to go and catch bluefin, half a dozen in Wales, 3 in Northern Ireland. The Scots haven't sorted it out yet, but that's devolution for you. They'll get to it in time. And there is a big, exciting, thriving fishery. It opens on the 15th of August. It ends on December the 11th. A lot of the boats are booked already, but if anyone wants to go, there's still a chance to go and do it. And I just think this is for angling, for sea angling, but also for the economy of Devon and Cornwall out of season once the kids have all gone back to school. And we all think, well, Cornwall, it must be marvellous, all the money. Actually, it's one of the poorest counties in England. And this fishery has got the chance, I think, to really turn around the economies of many of those coastal towns.
Well done you for highlighting. I mean, thanks to you, we have actually sent our news editor out day before yesterday, tuna fishing with a camera. So we're going to try and spread this message. So that is super. Just talk about the hookup of a bluefin compared to a marlin.
Well, a marlin jumps. So a marlin will jump he'll jump once or twice. A sailfish can jump up to 20 times. What a tuna does, it runs. So the first run's really exciting. The second run's pretty exciting. And then he goes straight down. He goes straight down, and that is the first part of tuna fishing is enormous fun.
Then it gets harder.
Then it gets really hard.
The Tunny Club reported the boats would be towed. You know, they went out in small boats in those days.
So the way it was done in those days, because the lines they had were much thicker diameter, they didn't have a reel with enough line to take the run. So what used to happen in those days was, out in the North Sea, they get a hook up and they put the angler in a coracle. So the angler would be sort of towed around the North Sea, and this was their way of tiring the fish.
It's a combination of water skiing and Jaws, really.
Yeah, pretty blooming dangerous too. Now, of course, we have nylon, sort of 100-pound nylon on top, but a mile of braid backing underneath. And of course, braid is a minute diameter. Depends a bit how you hook them. The scheme we've got at the moment is prohibiting live baiting, which, I'd much rather go live baiting, but hey, we're allowed to fish, so we're fishing with lures predominantly on a spreader bar, and because of the water pressure on the spreader bar, we're landing those fish in 30-40 minutes. Whereas, if you hook a bluefin on just a free-lined mackerel, and it's a big-sized bluefin, you're looking at well over an hour. In fact, the longest fight I had in Cornwall, no, I can't say this because it was illegal to fish for them. I accidentally hooked one in Cornwall whilst we were still in the EU, and it was stupid. It was a 50-pound class rod, and after 4 hours and 10 minutes,
really?
After 4 hours and 10 minutes, and that was a big fish. That was a 700-pound plus fish.
That's exciting.
So you've got to have the right kit, you've got to have the right gear. Some of the tuna boats in the UK have got fighting chairs on them, a very heavy kit. The day we had 9, we were using 80-pound stand-up, with decent harnesses. And actually, well, I've got a fairly bad neck and back from a slight accident with a plane that I had a few years ago. But actually, it's the legs that you use.
Okay. Right, while we're on the subject of European regulations being thrown into wastepaper baskets, we seem to be between Prime Ministers at the moment.
Again.
We may get a bonfire of European regulations. I mean, talking about the countryside particularly, have you got any on a list you would like to see burnt?
Well, I think we need to rethink the proposed ban on lead shots. I think that might be quite a popular one.
Small cheer for that.
Countryside.
Small cheer for that one. Well done, Nigel. Nobody would accuse him of appealing to the audience. Well done.
Well, no, I'm sincere about this. And that's the problem. I can't work out whether Liz Truss is sincere. But she's the one promising, bonfire, and she's going to win anyway. She's the one promising this bonfire of regulations. Does she mean it? Or is she just talking to a Tory audience? I don't know. But that would be a very good start, wouldn't it?
Rishi's the grouse shooter.
Yes, but he's not going to win.
Really?
No, he's not going to. Andrew Bridget MP is here. I'm right, aren't I? Of course I'm right. There we are.
He's always right. There we go.
No, not always. I mean, that would be a start. But look, I mean, we all know that in an increasingly urbanised society, it is very, very difficult for country folk, very difficult for country sports, and there are many, many in the Conservative Party now, who do support bans on hunting, etc.
The first EC directive we took on was the Birds Directive, which brought us the general licences, which is a ridiculous layer of cake where we are, broadly speaking, only allowed to shoot a few birds instead of not being allowed to shoot any, whereas before we were allowed to shoot any apart from the ones we're not allowed to shoot. Could we just get rid of that layer of cake and go back to the 150-year evolution of bird shooting licensing?
Yeah, we can do all of that, but what we need more advocates within the political system. We need more people putting pressure on government ministers.
So do you mean these guys, or do you mean Andrew?
I mean Andrew and all the rest of them. I'm struck that whilst there are still millions of us engaged in angling and shooting and field sports of one kind or another, we don't actually have many political champions, and we need to find more of them.
Just characterise that for me, because it does seem that there is an urban right and an urban left that wants to get rid of field sports, generally speaking. You're nodding. Is that correct?
Oh, without any shadow of a doubt. I mean, look, it goes further than that, doesn't it? I mean, they even want us to reduce the number of cattle that are farmed on the land. I mean, look what's been happening in the Netherlands over the course of the last few weeks. And they want us to go, is it vegetarian or vegan? God help us, I don't know.
Non-beer drinking.
Well, yeah, I'm afraid I'm a member of the beer drinking classes and I'm not going to change. But we have got real problems, but we need people to stand up and fight for us. And it's the same in the newspapers, isn't it? There aren't many newspapers now that stand up and fight for us. So I'm not pretending this stuff is easy.
Well, you're complaining. Is there anything we can do? I mean, is there anything we in the room can do?
Well, I think keep the pressure on. Let your MPs know how you feel. They do actually read the letters you send them, I promise you. Don't email them. There's no point emailing them because they get ridiculous numbers of emails. But if you actually write a letter and put a stamp on it and send it to a constituency office, they get read. They get read. That's one little thing that you can do. But I think it's actually up to all of us, Charlie, engaged at the sharp end of this. We need to find more people, who are in politics, who are in the media, who are prepared to make a stand.
This is like hug a hoodie, isn't it? It's like take a vegan shooting. Is that the idea?
Well, I'm not sure there's much point really in doing that. No, we've got to encourage people to be braver, to stand up. There are lots and lots. I've found this all through my career in politics, media, whatever I've done, that there are lots of people that will agree with you in private. It's just about getting them to stand up and start to say these things in public. And the other thing we've got to do, we've got to deal with the RSPB, who appear to have completely lost their marbles. I mean, I took a photograph yesterday, it was a very bad photograph, last week of a baby wren that was on the lawn, and I just about got the magpie as it swooped down and took the baby wren. I mean, the RSPB, all of these organisations, I mean, frankly, they've just lost their way completely.
Well, we had a piece this morning with the RSPB and the former chairman of the GWCC. I mean, this does seem to be a huge problem. That's a specific problem. You just talked about the Netherlands, which was an extraordinary protest. Are we capable of doing that? Should we be doing that kind of things? It was an awful lot of tractors on the motorways in the Netherlands.
Hey, we did it, didn't we? We did it. The countryside march. 406,000 of us peacefully marched. We had the big rally in Hyde Park. Interesting, wasn't it? No one left behind a single sweet wrapper. Good country people that left the place as they found it. So we have had these protests. Didn't get us anywhere, did it?
Well, that's the trouble. It didn't get us anywhere. So what happens next? Go on.
Well, I suppose you could argue that the poll tax riots, where they smashed up Trafalgar Square and set fire to... No, I'm not advocating that.
Well, you do get into trouble if you do. Your friend Donald did this.
I'm not advocating that. January the 6th isn't good. Look, it's about numbers, isn't it? Actually, cynically, it is about numbers.
No, it's not, because 400,000 of us was a big number.
But hang on a second. It is about numbers, and I'll tell you why. Because there are many, many rural seats in particularly from Surrey down to Land's End, all those counties through there that are held by Conservatives that are going to face some very real Liberal Democrat challenges next time. I mean, who's to say where we're going to be in 2 years' time, but it's quite possible they're going to face some big Liberal Democrat challenges. So there is an opportunity there. For Conservative MPs and for Conservative prospective MPs to engage with our community.
Right, let's talk about you. Are you likely to find your way, I'd say, back into a Conservative fold of some kind?
Well, not under their current policies. I mean, the net zero policy, brilliant, isn't it? We export manufacturing jobs and we import fuel that we could be producing in this country. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest madnesses of the whole thing. On immigration, we can't discuss that. It's too awkward, too difficult, too embarrassing. We've got the farce of the English Channel going on. Are either of these two, is Liz actually going to stand up and take us out of ECHR? I doubt it. So, look, I find myself still miles away from where they are.
Who could you stand for? Because although you are probably powerful enough to stand by yourself, it would be easier if you were in a mainstream party.
Yeah, I mean, look, under PR, under PR, when I led UKIP to winning the 2014 European election, the Brexit Party to winning the 2019 European election, and in the 2015 general election, we got 4 million votes and 1 seat. I mean, am I really going to put myself through the agonies of fighting the first past the post system again? I don't think I am. I mean, one good thing would be, of course, if we did get a Labour Liberal Democrat coalition and they introduced PR, well, then I'd have no choice but to get back in the race and try and win 100 seats and try and hold the balance of power. But as it is, I mean, I was in business. I worked in the city, worked in commodities, and that gave me an advantage, actually. Having worked in the private sector gave me a big advantage. The city was very different in those days. I always say to people, I worked damned hard in the city for 20 years, up until lunchtime, every single day. And not a lot happened in the afternoons. It was good fun. But I got into it for one big reason. My one big reason was to re-establish the independence of the country. That has been achieved. There's more work to do. I certainly wouldn't go back into politics just for a career. I've done it, and to be honest with you, I'm quite enjoying GB News. I'm quite enjoying media. I'm off to Dallas next Friday for a big rally with an American friend of mine. You might have heard of him, Donald. And life's pretty good.
You're fishing more.
I'm fishing a lot more. Had a very, very good start to the season. Caught a lot of bass in May. That's been going well. And I've got 8 tuna weekends booked in Cornwall this year.
Right,
so.
now you're showing off. Can I drag you back to Donald's, because he has been one of your special projects.
Oh, yeah.
What's he like?
Oh, just larger than life, outrageous. I mean, he is a New Yorker that grew up in the 1950s and 60s, when New Yorkers were way more out there than any other American, when New Yorkers were good at being rude to pretty much anybody and everybody, and that's what he's like. He's got a terrific sense of humour. He makes mistakes, but I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for him, I don't think the world would have woken up to what a threat the Chinese Communist Party is. I think he did it very, very effectively. I think to turn America from a country that launched an endless series of foreign wars into being effectively, somebody attempting to make peace with the North Koreans or whoever it was, to have left in place the Abraham Accords between Israel and many of those Arab states. For all the noise, for all the sound, for all the fury, I thought he did some very, very good things, and Democrats are making a complete mess of America, particularly in the cities where law and order. I mean, Black Lives Matter. The aim of Black Lives Matter was to defund the police, and many police departments have defunded their police forces with 30% rises in murder, rape, and everything else. So I think that on a law and order ticket, I think that the Republicans will sweep the midterm elections in November of this year. And it's there in 2024.
With him anywhere near the head of him?
Oh, he'll be the head of them for the midterms, if that was no doubt. Is he going to run again in the next presidential election? Well, he's just had his 76th birthday, but he's in very good health, playing golf every day, lost weight since he was president.
Sound like his personal coach.
Well, I think when it comes to lifestyle, Charlie, I'm not the one to coach anybody, frankly. But no, I think he'll run again. And I think he'll win again.
Just a matter of interest, who here is a Trump hater? Any Trump haters in today? Any Trump lovers? Oh my goodness, that's
proper people. Exactly what I expected at the game fair.
Do you think Donald will care about this at all?
Oh, so his son, Don Jr., is a hunting, shooting, fishing fanatic. And I know he's coming over to go stalking in September in the Highlands, and I think he's coming on a boat with me to try and catch some bluefin as well.
Oh, fabulous. We'd like to film that, please, Nigel. Thank you very much indeed.
No, you would.
Have you got any media aspirations? I mean, there's the opposite of you, the Wicked Witch of the West is Piers Morgan, and he went off and had a career in America. Will you do that?
Well, no, what I'd like to do is disrupt British broadcasting as much as I disrupted British politics, because it bloody well needs it.
That's our first significant cheer of the day. That one plays very well. All right, how would you do that?
Well, it's easy, isn't it? You just beat them at their own game. You beat them at their own game. You beat them in terms of the numbers you get. You beat them in terms of the political influence you get. You beat them because you start not just as a news organisation to follow the story that happened yesterday, you start to create the story that becomes the conversation tomorrow. And that's how you change things in a democracy. And I think, the BBC, God help us with the BBC. Sky's even more left-wing. Channel 4, virtually Marxist to a man and woman. But there's no proper debate, is there? There's no proper debate. Take the channel debate. All you will hear on the BBC and those other channels is poor, desperate people crossing the English Channel. Well, believe you me, I've met thousands of them, face to face. It's my job, I think, to welcome them all in, you know. And a lot of these are very aggressive, dangerous-looking young men. And I even filmed, the last time I was out, in my channel, we actually filmed them throwing their iPhones and their ID documents into the English Channel. Now, if you were a genuine refugee, you would not throw away your ID, would you? You'd want people to know who you were. And I think a lot of these people that are coming in will get involved in criminality. Many others will get involved. Well, who's to say that some don't support ISIS? Who's to say what any of these people will do? And that's not to say we shouldn't, have a heart for those being persecuted in, whether it's Hong Kong or whether it's people who need accommodation from Ukraine. That's a very different thing than one. But you will not get a proper conversation about that on these channels. Sky were running until recently the climate hour, a whole hour telling us we're all about to die, if we dare to drive out to buy a newspaper. No sense of balance, no sense of debate. So I think there's a big gap in the market.
In this modern media, you get to be partial. You get to say what you think, what you would like. You don't have to produce solutions anymore. If you're not in politics formally, you, I think, would probably tend to produce solutions. What should Priti Patel do about the immigration crisis?
Well, look, all the while we're part. So the European Convention on Human Rights was part of this post-war construct with its own court, and it was all there because they wanted to stop any repeat of what happened bit by bit in Germany in the 1930s, and it was there as an early warning system. And it was well-intentioned, and the British actually, in many ways, helped set the thing up. But because of judicial activism, it now needs to justify its own role, and it's become something very different. Blair incorporated it into UK law with the 1998 Human Rights Act. And as it stands, there was an aeroplane on the runway ready to send some people off to Rwanda, and an unnamed judge at 10 p.m. in Strasbourg ruled that plane couldn't take off. So I think we need to get Brexit completed. I think we need a proper Brexit. We don't need to be part of the European Court of Human Rights. There are no lessons on justice this country can learn from Europe. Since Magna Carta, whatever the flaws of our system, we've actually put together the best, fairest judicial system in the world. We don't need lectures from anybody. And until we sort that issue out, we will not be able to return people to France. And if you can't return people to France, or you can't send people to Rwanda, then there's no disincentive to give 5,000 euros to the trafficker. So that's what's got to happen.
But we want to express that we have heart, and you were saying we are not a persecuting nation and we welcome refugees. So how do we express that?
Well, we do it. The way we have been doing it. We've been taking, in the last 18 months, we've taken very large numbers of people from Afghanistan, from Hong Kong, and from Ukraine. We are doing more than our bit to help people who are genuinely in need, as we did going back with Priti Patel's family. And there was an example of a group of people, 27,000 people, that came in from Uganda and have been massively successful and done very well in this country. But this is about, we are literally, right now being made an international mockery of. A country that voted to take back control of its borders, and we're now being mocked. And it doesn't do us any good on the world stage, and it's making many people in this country absolutely furious.
Okay, well, if I find myself even slightly defending the BBC, I need to go and take a shower, but I'm a Jacobi, I'm an immigrant, I came over on a boat. I'm not sure where did the Farages come from. That sounds foreign.
Well, they didn't come across on a dinghy. They came as,
Stena Line, were
they came as political refugees because they were Protestants and they were having a very tough time with the Catholics, which is why I'm a Henry VIII man all the way through.
All right, so the Farages came across, and we found you at home. Jolly generous of us. I think you beat us, so you found me at home.
Yeah,
too.
I don't think there was too much social security knocking about in those days. Look, we've always been a country. We're far more open-minded than most of our European neighbours, actually, when it comes to this. But this is not the way to do it. And the point is, you've got illegal migration running as it is, but even legal migration now running at nearly net 250,000 a year. This is not what people voted for.
Okay. As a matter of interest, a little and more audience participation here. I mean, immigration is we are often told is the big Brexit issue. Did anybody here vote for or against Brexit on the subject of immigration, principally? There are a few. Did anybody not really consider immigration as a problem? Not that many. So yeah. So you seem to be on the side of the crowd here. How extraordinary. We are going to see the BBC here later on. What should I ask them?
Oh God, where do we start? Well, I mean, obviously you've got to ask them in relation to the countryside, in relation to farming, in relation to country sports, country traditions, country crafts. And why have we got Countryfile as it is? I can't watch Countryfile. I want to watch Countryfile. I can't watch it.
2 cheers.
2. So corner them on Countryfile, which now seems to be more about diversity and all sorts of other things than it does about the British countryside, what it's represented and where it's going for the future. And I did think a few years ago that was a good programme. It was certainly part of my regular weekly watch. I can't bear it anymore.
It's trying to do something which whose day may have passed, which is to tell us what to think. The man on the air ministry roof, the way the BBC talks down and says, this is what you must think. I don't just wish to put words in your mouth, but I don't get a feeling you're more bottom up. This is what we think. You can think that if you want to. Is that right?
Oh, I'm bottoms up. Don't worry about that. Yeah, no, I mean that's right. That's right. And it actually, funny, I mean, the movement to get us out of the European Union had nothing to do with Boris Johnson. It came from tens of thousands of ordinary folk who felt this and went out and campaigned. And that was your best example you'll ever see of a grassroots rebellion that spread across the country. No, the BBC, they're out of touch. They're completely out of touch. And, maybe what we all ought to do really is spend a bit more of our time watching the Fieldsports channel.
Oh, you are a marvellous man. Thank you very much, Nigel. Available on computer near you. You completely thrown me there. I certainly wasn't expecting that. And I've got a message. Right, we're going to disrupt you. Yeah. We're going to disrupt you because you are the closest thing we have to a politician here today. We had a rumour that Rishi might be here today. He's developed a sudden interest in grassroots Tory voters.
Interesting.
You'd never guess why.
No. Will he come, do you think?
I hope so. He should. We need to be taken seriously.
That'll be good.
We have got the ultimate disruptors of Parliament waiting in the wings, and if you could behave like an MP, and I think we might have to get you to clap them on and clap Nigel off. We have the Westminster 8 who burst into Parliament in 2004 during the path of the hunting ban, Tony Blair's hunting ban. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Nigel Farage.